the murderous Mr. Punch. 1968 was a busy year. The Viet Cong launched the Tet Offensive. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Czechoslovakia was invaded by the Russians, and first-class post was introduced in the UK. And inside the Old Bailey, a secret trial was taking place. Even today, the gagging order is still in operation. We are prevented from naming the person involved. We shall refer to him as the Professor. A Punch and Judy performer is traditionally called Professor, and our Professor was a very ill man. The odd character you see before you was central to the case, and the reason for the whole sorry story. This Mr. Punch puppet was owned by the Professor, and from the mid-1950s he performed his shows on the seafronts along the beaches of Blackpool, the Clyde Coast, and Morecambe Bay. Mr. Punch first spoke to him during the winter of 1960. He asked to be moved from his cold dark box to an armchair in the front parlour. Over the next few years, the Professor heard from Mr. Punch more and more. In the early days, it was one-way communication. But by 1965, he was having fully fledged discussions on a wide range of topics. According to his nephew, who was interviewed when we obtained Mr. Punch, the Professor became very withdrawn and secretive. His wife initially thought he was having an affair until she caught the two of them discussing where they should go on their holidays. Things took a turn for the sinister in the summer of 1966. England won the World Cup and Mr. Punch suggested murder. The Professor was completely under his spell, and after the last show of the season, he went for a walk and brutally beat to death a couple he found kissing on the beach. The Professor was discovered by the police covered in blood, Mr. Punch on his hand, shouting, "That's the way to do it! That's the way to do it!" It took 6 police officers to restrain him. He only calmed down when one of the officers noticed how he was reacting to Mr. Punch. The constable put his handcuffs on Mr. Punch, and immediately the Professor became still and immobile. Psychiatric evaluation was ordered, and the diagnosis was a rare condition where Mr. Punch had taken on the form of his darkest thoughts and had become the dominant character. In the words of the chief medical officer, the Professor and Mr. Punch had become different aspects of the same person. With this in mind, the judge gave his sentence. He decreed that the Professor should be detained for life in a secure hospital, and Mr. Punch should be forever confined in his booth. So far, we have not heard his distinctive voice. But if you do, it's imperative that you let one of us know as soon as possible.